We all love stories about athletes who fight tooth and nail to stay at the top. But what about a legend who reached the absolute peak and then just walked away? This is the amazing story of Bobby Jones.
I mean, seriously, think about that for a second. Imagine if Michael Jordan had retired for good after his first three-peat and we never saw him play again. That's the kind of mind-blowing, legendary decision we're going to break down today. All right, let's dive right in. The man at the center of this whole story is Robert Bobby Tired Jones Jr. In the world of golf, that name represents a kind of greatness, a kind of legend that we just haven't seen since. So get this, Jones was born in 1902, and he was a pretty sickly kid. Doctors told him he needed to get more fresh air, so he found himself on a golf course. And what happened next was, well, nothing short of astonishing. By the time he was just 14, he was going toe-to-toe with grown men in national tournaments. And by 21, he'd already won the U.S. Open. Okay, so he's already major champion, a prodigy who actually lived up to all the hype. But what really, truly set him apart wasn't just his incredible talent, it was the path he decided to take. And here's the absolute crucial point you have to understand. Bobby Jones never turned pro. In a time when big-time talent and big-time money were starting to become the same thing, he played for one reason and one reason only, the love of the game. Now, this wasn't just a casual choice. It was a statement. He was the ideal gentleman athlete, competing at the highest level imaginable while also building a whole life and career away from the sport. You know, when you think of golf in the roaring 20s, you're really thinking about Bobby Jones. It was his decade. His calm personality, his brilliant mind, and that absolutely beautiful, fluid swing, it all made him a global icon. He wasn't just winning, he was completely captivating everybody who watched him. So this entire decade of just pure dominance, it was all building toward a single moment. One perfect season that would etch his name into history forever. The year was 1930, a single season that became the absolute pinnacle of his career. And you could argue, maybe the greatest single season in the history of any sport. In that one year, he won the 4 most important tournaments in the entire world. 4 majors, one perfect season. He completely conquered the world of golf on both sides of the Atlantic. He won the biggest tournaments in Great Britain and the United States. He beat the professionals in the Open Championships, and he beat his fellow amateurs in their championships. It was just a total, absolute sweep. And to put this into perspective, this specific set of 4 tournaments, the original Grand Slam, has never, ever been won in a single year by anyone else. It was, and it still is, a totally unique feat of pure perfection. So, you've achieved the impossible. You are the undisputed king of your sport. What do you do next? Well, what Bobby Jones did next is exactly what makes his story so legendary. He retired at just 28 years old. Right after winning the Grand Slam, at the absolute highest point of his power, he walked away from competitive golf. For good. And that, right there, that's the central mystery of it all. Why? Why would you give it all up when you are the best in the world, with what seemed like years of dominance still ahead of you? The answer is actually pretty simple, and it says so much about who he was. For Jones, golf was a deep passion, but it wasn't his whole identity. The mental pressure of trying to stay that perfect was just grueling. He had conquered the entire world of golf, and he was ready to just live the rest of his life, to focus on his family, his career as a lawyer, and his love for writing. But retiring from competition didn't mean he just left the game behind. Not at all. In fact, you could make a pretty strong argument that his greatest contributions to golf came after he stopped competing. This is where his legacy really becomes immortal. So after he retired, he partners with an investment banker, Clifford Roberts, and they have this grand vision to create a golfer's paradise. They founded Augusta National Golf Club down in Georgia, and then they established a little tournament there. Maybe you've heard of it, the Masters. It was designed to be this annual get-together for the world's best players, and, well, it's become one of the most iconic sporting events on the planet. But, you know, as incredible as creating the Masters is, that's still not the whole story. Jones is remembered just as much for how he played the game as for how well he played it. And there's this one story that captures it perfectly. Back in the 1925 U.S. Open, his ball moved, just the tiniest bit, as he was getting ready to hit it. Nobody saw it, not the crowd, not the officials, But Jones saw it, and he called a penalty on himself, a penalty that ended up costing him the tournament. When reporters praised him later for his amazing sportsmanship, that was his famous reply. To him, honesty wasn't something to be praised. It was just the standard. It was just the way things are supposed to be. And even as his health got worse later in life, when he was suffering from a painful spinal disease, his passion for golf never went away. He was there at the Masters every single year, this beloved figure whose spirit truly defined the tournament that he helped create. So what's the big takeaway here? Bobby Jones wasn't just a great golfer. He was a once-in-a-generation figure. The only person to ever win the Grand Slam, a lifelong amateur who beat the very best pros, the visionary who gave us the Masters, and maybe above all, a timeless symbol of what it means to compete with true honor. And that really leaves us with a fascinating question to chew on. In our modern world, with the multi-million-dollar contracts, the endless sponsorships, and the constant pressure for more, could a champion who valued integrity over victory and life over legacy ever exist again? It's really something to think about.